Hi, everyone. Welcome to Authenticity with Alicia, the podcast where we explore burnout, the pressures of society, and our quest for identity and authenticity. I'm Alicia, and today we're joined by Dez Valdez, who is a licensed therapist and consultant, whose one of specialties is one of my favorite topics to talk about, financial therapy. And even though they specialize in all sorts of things. We're going to focus on that one today because we're doing a special therabundle episode today. So we're going to talk lots more about that. But thank you so much for joining today.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm super excited to be here.
I
Yeah.
am so excited. I've gotten to see you a little bit in the therabundle promo stuff, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I really hope we can connect, and I'm so glad we get to. So it's
Yes.
like my favorite thing of bundle season is getting to chat with other people.
I would say that that is one of the highlights is networking, collaboration, communication, connection, all of it. I'm really excited about that piece of it.
Oh, so Therabundle's coming up, so I'm getting a little bit of ahead of myself. I want to talk about that in a little bit, but one of your specialties is financial therapy.
Mhm.
And it's one of my favorite things too. And I know something that you promote a lot is just talking about it. There's such a stigma around finances. And I'm curious why you think money is such a hard topic to talk about.
Yeah, big question and a lot of reasons.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, we are told not to talk about money.
Mhm.
It's such a stigmatized subject. But really what that does is it keeps us oppressed. And we can get into kind of the reasons for that. But it is a really stigmatized subject. We're told not to tell each other our salaries.
Hmm.
We don't talk about money within family units. We um are shamed around our financial situations. And so a lot of us aren't open about our financial struggles. There's just a lot of reasons why.
Yeah. So I think
Yeah.
so what I'm hearing is some of it is direct messaging, right? Of there's
Yeah.
literally policies. I mean, I've worked at agencies where it's against the rules to talk about a salary, which seems
Yeah.
so wild to me.
Yeah.
But then there's other maybe more subtle kind of ways of going about it too, where there's some stigma, some uncomfortability. We just don't talk about it. So we don't know really how to talk about it. Might have some shame in there, and it just gets layered.
Absolutely. And I'd add that, it also allows inequities to flourish. And, the lack of pay transparency, for example, allows inequities to flourish. There's also a lot of lost knowledge of critical information around, investing or saving or, addressing debt and things like that. And financial disparities, if we kind of zoom out and look at our larger systems of oppression, and one of those being capitalism, financial disparities really stay hidden and they go unchallenged if we don't talk about it.
Yeah.
And we also lose things like collective power for salary negotiation or fair pay, fair wages, for benefits. And yeah, I mean, I think one of the biggest messages is that it allows our larger systems of oppression to flourish. And I think people who are from marginalized communities, including myself, identify as queer, and I'm also Mexican American, come from immigrant family. We know what that feels like, and we can really easily internalize that.
Yeah, I think that's such an accurate statement of how so not only are there these direct messages from, companies and then the powers that be that then also keeps them in charge and those power structures there. And it's really only harming or harming the oppressed and those marginalized communities at higher rates than other people. And then that just makes it harder to keep talking about it. It takes away that collectiveness, that community, that advocacy piece, and it just adds more additional barriers to that.
Yeah, yeah. And I'd say too that, these are the reasons why it's so important to talk about the emotional side of money
Mm-hmm.
and the impact on our personal lives, but also our
Mm-hmm.
professional lives, because money isn't just numbers. If we really deconstruct kind of what our systems tell us and what our relationships with money are, we really find that money is highly emotional, it's deeply personal, and it's
Yeah.
not just about numbers. It's not just about financial education and financial literacy. That is important,
Mm-hmm.
very important. We need to know the how to. But before we can even get there, we have to kind of address how we feel about it, what we believe about it, how we internalize that messaging, and how that interferes with our relationship with money, including in our businesses. especially
Yeah.
as service providers. But yeah.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. Yeah. So I know like when one of the things that you and your resources, which again, we're going to get to in a minute, I'm super excited to talk about, but something that you're really good at explaining is that relationship between money and like shame and trauma and scarcity. So like you said, like you're, yes, like the how-tos are important and you address a lot of the how-tos, but you're also getting to like that deep root stuff in a lot of the stuff that you do. Can you explain like how those things impact the relationship that we have with money?
Yeah, absolutely. And I can give some examples, but I think I want to just share because a lot of people, including a lot of other therapists that I talk to, whenever I say I'm a financial therapist, they're like, what? Like, what is that? What does that even mean? Like, are you a financial professional? Like, what is that? Tell me more. And I think just to kind of preface your question, it's, financial therapy is taking everything we know about things like trauma, shame, scarcity, depression, anxiety, oppression, discrimination, and other things, and applying it to money. So really, it's a lot of the things that we already know, especially
Mhm.
as therapists, but I think just people in general. And we're taking that, and instead of applying it to other things, we're applying it to money, and that can take a little while for people to kind of reframe or understand and like have that click in their mind.
Mhm.
But once we really start talking about it and digging into those details, people start to be like, oh, light bulb moment. That's why I do that thing. It's because of these past money
Yes.
experiences or
Mhm.
things like generational trauma or,
Mhm.
systemic trauma, relational trauma is actually getting in the way with me being able to build wealth or, have a sustainable business or and I think this is, part of the point of my course, which I know we'll talk about, which, as a service-based provider, we're setting fees, we're increasing fees. And if we shy away from that, we're not able to do things like build wealth or have a sustainable
Mhm.
business. So I think I just wanted to give that little bit of a kind of like a summary of like what
Yeah.
therapy is and kind of how we're connecting it to all of this. And yeah, when it comes to trauma, shame, and scarcity, so I'm a certified financial social worker. And so I'm a licensed clinical social worker in private practice. And I also am an organizational consultant to mental health nonprofits who are serving the larger community and doing community-based work. So I primarily work with marginalized communities. So
Mhm.
this type of work really fits in with kind of what I'm passionate about and what my social justice values are.
Yeah.
And also as a therapist, we're constantly addressing things like trauma and shame.
Mhm.
And what we know about trauma, right, is that it's our nervous system's response to something that hurt us or harmed us, and we can
Mhm.
carry that forward in
Mhm.
all parts of our lives. And we can have kind of the freeze, fight, flight, fawn responses. And I can give some examples in a little bit around kind of what that looks like in relation to our relationship with
Mm.
money. But I think it's an important piece to kind of think about and hold in mind as we talk about it, because that is what's happening to us internally when we're doing things like making money decisions or having money conversations with a
Yeah.
partner or with a client even.
Yeah.
Um, and the link of where kind of scarcity comes into play is that scarcity can have a very similar impact on the brain as trauma does.
Mm.
And so when we're in scarcity around things like money, of course, but
Mhm.
time, connection, belonging, food, or other things, that feels like a threat to us. And it makes us
Mhm.
feel unsafe in the
Mhm.
same way that trauma does. And then the third part of that, and then I'll I'll pause,
Okay.
is around shame and how much we can internalize the things that we've kind of mentioned already.
Mhm.
The strong messaging we receive from capitalism around, productivity, like
Mhm.
which can lead to workaholism, et cetera. Or the strong messaging around the binary of what they say money is, which is like good or bad, or
Mm.
rich or poor, but money isn't inherently bad.
Yeah.
It's how it's applied to us. It's how we are treated and how we're marginalized. And so we can really internalize that messaging. And so part of the work is to externalize that and understand
Mm.
what's impacting us in our environment that is actually causing our money beliefs and the way that we interact with it. Yeah.
No, that makes total sense. And I could just like, you could do a TED talk on this because it's just like dropping knowledge. And yet, thank you for explaining what financial therapy is. I think like for me, I've referred people to financial therapists. So I
Uh-huh.
forget that like that's not a common thing that everyone knows. Like, yeah, there's therapists like actually trained in this and it's not, like a financial planner. You're doing like therapy around those things. And I think all the things that you're making, like it has made me think of a client, obviously not giving any identifying information, but like them and their partner, they just couldn't see eye to eye on things. And like they were doing all the how-tos, right? And it's like, oh, well, you set a budget or you do some of these how-tos around finances, but they never really were addressing the root of like why some of these things were hard, why those emotions were coming up, their family of origin experiences with things. And so when I finally referred them to the financial plan or the financial therapist, they were able to get to the root of like those patterns and the emotions and the shame and having those conversations at a deeper level. I think that's what a lot of stuff that you get to do, which is so cool.
Yeah, absolutely. And just to kind of, I guess, riff off of that example. So I know I mentioned I'm a certified financial social worker, but I'm also a, certified trauma of money method facilitator. And if you haven't heard of that, or if folks on this podcast haven't heard of the trauma of money, I highly recommend checking them out. They have an 18-week live course all about trauma of money, not just
Yeah.
for financial therapists, but also for all financial professionals,
Mhm.
coaches, et cetera. And they really dive deeply into a lot of this stuff. And this is where I kind of was able to put my language together
Mm.
for how we're relating
Mhm.
with money. And but they talk about three buckets of financial kind of disruptions, essentially, and they reframe that from calling them financial disorders.
Mm.
And the three buckets are financial avoidance disruptions, financial soothing disruptions, and then the relational money disruptions. And
Oh.
so, what you're describing in your example, like there's that relational money disruption, right, where it causes
Hmm.
um, conflict essentially. But if
Yeah.
we dig deeper, and my guess is, like you said, they dug deeper, that comes from somewhere. It comes from,
Hmm.
past experiences relationally with our caregivers or our models or our siblings, whatever it is, that we're interacting with money around, or maybe not around with money. It's just these relational traumas that we have that show up when we're in kind of
Hmm.
these like defense modes, right? Or yeah, when we're, activated in some way, and then all of a sudden our money blocks show up and we're not able
Yeah.
to have those conversations with our partner about that,
Hmm.
et cetera. So yeah, I just wanted to share that piece.
No, that makes a lot of sense. And it's like, and the way that you used the language earlier of how like these money things can like simulate the trauma response makes total sense as you're like, as we're, exploring like the dynamics and the shame and those
Mhm.
internalized things. And a lot of times it's like feeling out of control and things that, are outside of our power and feeling helpless. And so like, I'm gonna like, that just like changed. I was like an aha moment for my brain when you said that earlier. And I was like, oh my God, that's such a good nugget of explaining things. Um, I don't know where I was going with that, but I just
I
like
may have
remembered.
diverted you.
No, but I was like, I think I just like remembered really liking how you phrased that. And I was like, I want to make sure other people like it is like a trauma response in these things. And like that's why there's these money traumas, and that's why we have these reactions to it. I think I was going somewhere along the lines of like bringing it back to therapists because I know the therabundle's really about therapists. I mean, non-therapists can benefit from your course, I believe, but I know therabundle's really aimed at therapists. So I'm curious if there's common themes that you see with therapists when it comes to like money and shame and scarcity.
Absolutely. I actually thought about this before we hopped on because I was like, there's so many examples that we could go over. We could talk for days about this.
Yeah.
And I also get really excited about it. So I'll just keep going and going. So like, all right, let me kind of rein it in and just think about a few examples as it specifically relates to therapists.
Hmm.
So I think I'm going to talk about like three or four different money blocks that can come up,
Mm.
money disruptions, but I call them
Hmm.
money blocks in my course
Okay.
that I have found in my work with therapists, whether that's through training or, just one-on-one conversations, et cetera,
Yeah.
that really show up for them, particularly in the work. And the first one is around what the trauma of money calls financial rejection. And this is a financial avoidance disruption. And this happens when we're kind of in our flight response, right? We're trying
Mm.
to run away, get away, or
Mhm.
um, and so it's really common for people in the helping profession in general, particularly when you hold social justice values. It manifests as a dislike of money or an aversion to
Mm.
capitalism,
Mhm.
understandably, because it's not in alignment with our values, right?
Mhm.
And this leads to us thinking, okay, money is bad, right? It's that kind of
Yeah, that
binary thinking.
dichotomy. Yep.
Exactly. Yeah. And what that can do is it leads us to do things, and maybe it's not even conscious, but
Mm.
it leads us to like earn less money, or not negotiate our salaries, because we don't want more money, or we see wealth as bad,
Mhm.
and or having an excessive aversion to debt even,
Mm.
or just really avoiding opportunities in general to build your wealth.
Yeah.
And also can lead to us feeling, shame around having money. And
Yeah.
it can also make us avoid people who do. And so that's not necessarily specific to therapists and our businesses, but I do think it's an important point,
Mhm.
that, we can carry that kind of internalized feeling and belief around it. And so we just avoid wealth altogether,
Mhm.
reject it. And so we
Yeah.
don't raise our fees. We don't set fees that make us have a sustainable business. Um, Let's see. There's a few more. I feel like I can keep going on that one because there's so much there.
I was gonna say, yeah,
Uh,
like I can think of like multiple like therapists or the Facebook groups that have those types of conversations in it. I think that one is super prevalent and relatable for
yeah,
folks.
absolutely. Yeah. Especially if we're working with marginalized communities,
Mhm.
it's just, yeah, I mean, yeah. But the next one I wanted to mention is around financial comfort zone. And this is a financial avoidance disruption too. And this is when we like freeze up. Um,
Mm.
and what that means is that someone might feel more comfortable or at ease in a financial situation that they're used to from growing up, for example. And
Yeah.
so, if somebody experienced poverty or some form of scarcity growing up, again, this might not be conscious, but they might be keeping themselves in their
Mhm.
financial comfort zone, including not raising our fees or,
Yeah.
et cetera, or setting rates that we need to be able to sustain ourselves. And so, this is something, again, not conscious, but it is our freeze response. We just
Mhm.
don't just kind of stay where we feel comfortable, even if it's
Mhm.
not serving us anymore. Um,
Like we know how to survive that area. Like it might not be, sustainable or thriving, but our bodies know how to survive it.
Exactly. Yes. Love how you said that. Exactly. That's totally it.
Yeah.
Um, the third of the four that I want to share is around workaholism. I know I mentioned this earlier, but this is under the category of financial soothing disruptions. And because we're trying to take care of ourselves, again,
Mhm.
even if it's not conscious and if it's not serving us. And this is another example of having a flight response. And so, you know, we're trying to distract ourselves, for example, or we're trying to avoid something because this is
Mhm.
just easier to, be kind of tunnel vision in all of our work. And so we keep working, working, working to avoid other things. But essentially, overworking or workaholism can stem from like past experiences of scarcity or internalized, societal messages or pressure around productivity standards and how
Mhm.
we equate that to value,
Mhm.
in our society or status even. And then, of course, the desire to kind of avoid or distract from pain. And so I think a lot of us, especially as business owners, if we're in private practice, do this.
I was like, yeah, you could just like at me on that one. I was like, ooh, past stuff. Yep. Oh, avoiding some of
Yes,
these things. Yep. Productivity
ex-
messaging. Yep.
exactly, exactly. And it can also show up as people pleasing too, which is a fun response, right? We're kind of doing it to please others, or we're doing it, for some other reason relationally. And it really is all we're trying to just keep ourselves, we're trying to regulate and keep ourselves safe,
Yeah.
even though it has like it's counterproductive often because then we exhaust ourselves and our nervous systems. But yeah, this is again an example of like a flight response that we can have. The fourth one I think is actually very prevalent in our work.
Ooh.
It's under the category of financial codependency.
Ooh.
And this is within the relational money disruptions and is a fawn response. Um, And it's when someone is helping somebody else or others financially at their own expense,
Oh,
ultimately
yeah.
putting themselves at risk, right?
Mhm.
Financial risk, putting them in a situation where they can't sustain themselves. Um, it can look like having difficulty setting boundaries with people, whether that's in your personal or professional life, having a hard time saying no when somebody
Mhm.
asks for money. And that can ultimately lead to resentment,
Mhm.
regardless of what kind of relationship it is, a personal relationship or a client relationship. And it can also involve, and this is this is the thing, people pleasing behavior, like under earning, undercharging, giving discounts, again,
Not
not
charging for late cancels, all that stuff. I'm like, oh yeah, I can see that
exactly.
one in the Facebook boards and the therapy groups a lot.
Exactly, exactly. And it comes from a good place often, you
Uh-huh.
know what I mean? Like we're helpers, we're givers, and we really want to support people. And again, if we work with marginalized communities, we're trying to create access.
Mhm.
But we have to weigh that with and balance it with, like, how do we sustain ourselves so we're able to provide and give the work and the level of service that we want to.
Yeah.
And if we aren't taking care of ourselves financially, then it's hard to take care of ourselves in those other ways and serve people in the ways that we want to. And so it comes from a good place. It comes from
Mhm.
like a good heart.
Oh yeah.
Um, but it definitely gets in the way of our financial sustainability in our businesses.
Oh, for sure. And I think and I mean, I think with the lens that you have of social justice, it's like shows that we're trapped in these larger systems. And it's like so frustrating then. So it's like, a lot of us want to help and to create accessibility and quality care and to do these things. But then when these other systems suck and are against people, then it's like, well, I have to kind of almost sacrifice myself so I can be there for these other people. And it's just like, then I can get burned out or resentful or not be able to serve those people as much as I'd like to. And it's just like a lose-lose, but the people in power always get to like keep going still.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Ugh.
Big imbalance there.
Yeah, no, I think a lot of those examples you said were very like relatable and can resonate with a lot of folks. And I'm glad. I mean, these are things that you cover in your course for the therabundle, correct?
I do. Yeah. And I cover more of the money disruptions and money blocks in there. Yeah.
I'm super excited. I'm for sure gonna download. So can you tell us, let's start with like what the heck Therabundle is. So we've kind of like thrown this word around. If you've been in my audience, you know I'm a big fan of Therabundle, but if you're brand new, Therabundle's amazing, guys. So this is your first year in Therabundle, correct?
It is, and I'm super excited to be a part of it. I bought it last year on a whim, not really knowing what it was, but I was like, it's only $100, and they're saying that it's this like value packed, all these resources. And so I bought it, and I was so impressed with
Yes.
the Therabundle team, but also all of the contributors and their contributions. So impressed, and it was really helpful for me.
And then like I know the host who puts it on loves when like people buy Therabundle and then like they get to be in Therabundle. Like
Yeah.
she's such about, creating other businesses and growing and empowering people. So like you were like the goal of what she wants
Yeah.
is people to buy and then be like, wait, no, like you are amazing. Actually, like be in the Therabundle.
Yeah.
So can you explain for folks who've never heard of it what the heck the Therabundle is?
Yeah, yeah, it does require kind of like, a little bit of education around what it is because it can seem too good to be true. It is $100 and it's access to more than 60, I think it's like 62 or something
Something like that. Yeah.
resources. Yeah, whether it's workshops, master classes, downloads, tools, courses. I mean, you're going to find a lot of different types of digital products in there. And also like the connection and collaboration, all of that, um, and and yeah, I mean, I think this year, if when they added it all up, it's over $8,000 worth of products, which makes it feel like, wait a second, where's
Right.
why this feels weird. But again, my experience last year, I was like, okay, I'm totally blown away. These,
Mm,
contributions are super valuable. They're high quality and really useful and really, really relevant
mm.
to being a therapist in private practice or, not even just in private practice, but being a therapist in general. So yeah, lots and lots of really cool tools, workshops, courses, cetera.
Yeah, no, and it's definitely one of those where like it seems too good to be true, and then it's like, no, like they are actually like paid products, and like she does a great job of vetting, making sure it's cohesive and relevant. And it's so good to hear like from the consumer side, like you got it last year, and it's like, okay, like this is actually pretty legit and got to apply some things, and now you get to help other folks. But I agree. I think your stuff, especially, is not just for folks in private practice, but just therapists in general. It's so relevant and so needed. So, can you tell us a little bit about your course? It's called Money Healing for Therapists, correct?
It is, yeah. So it's Money Healing for Therapists, Foundations for a Thriving Therapy Business.
Ooh.
And it's all about helping therapists understand and overcome their money blocks. And that's where it starts. So, we can build a sustainable business. Like we talked about, I go over in the early modules around financial trauma and shame and scarcity and how that interferes with our professional and personal lives. So it gives a lot of context for that, which I think is a big piece of education that we don't get in
Mhm.
school.
Mhm.
We also, as therapists, don't get how to build a business and sustain a business in school. But I do think that educational piece around and like having all of that context and knowledge gives us a window into our relationship with money, how we're navigating our financials in our business, how we're having money conversations with clients, et cetera. And then I move into kind of the practical how to.
Mhm.
And the practical how to, gives strategies. I have, worksheets and frameworks and scripts and everything in there on how to kind of have those money
Mhm.
conversations, how to practice that, how to regulate our nervous systems. The framework that I give is I call the IRMA framework. It's ERMA. It's externalize, reframe, move through, and take action, and how each of those apply to how to move through our money blocks and
Mhm.
actually take action, make those better money decisions, et cetera.
Mhm.
And so, we can take kind of the first, 3 or 4 modules, I can't remember, and actually kind of apply that to many other areas of our relationship with money beyond just fee setting and fee
Yeah.
increasing. But I wanted to create something that was relatable for therapists, that was kind of like, can be squeezed into, a smaller course. And so I know that that is one thing. It's a pain point as therapists have, is having those money conversations. And especially when we're going to increase our fees, we can freeze up, we can avoid, we can, people please. And so I wanted to make it really specific for therapists so they could have these like tangible tools of
Mhm.
how to do that. But it really applies to kind of everything else, yeah, related to
Right. Like
money.
you said, like the scripts and some of the how-tos are going to be maybe more like therapy practice centered, but a lot of like the big concepts, and when you're doing a lot of that exploration, it's going to be able to apply to how we talk to our partners about money, or how we budget for things in our home, or just some of those things. Like it's going to have like a ripple effect.
Exactly. And as a bonus to add to that, we can take everything we learn in it and apply it to our client's relationship with money. Because I think that's
Yes.
another, not I think, I know it's another thing that comes up for therapists is they're like, I freeze up when my client starts to talk about money. I don't know what to say. I don't know how to help
Mhm.
them. And I just kind of avoid the conversation or kind of, like I've definitely heard that. And I've done that myself. I'm like, ooh,
Yeah.
I don't really know how to talk about this person, because again, we don't talk about money and we don't have
Mhm.
the language or the scripts for that. There's no template for that.
Mhm.
And so I just wanted to say that too, like it can help you personally and professionally as a therapist or business owner or
Mhm.
service provider. But also you can take all of it and, when money comes up for your
Yeah.
clients, you know what to say. You can
Yeah.
give context and language to them to support them in healing their own relationship with money.
Oh, that is so helpful. So really just like a multifaceted, like super, I'm super excited. It's definitely one that I'm going to do. I'm a big like how-to person. I'm very type A logical. I love a worksheet, but like knowing that that's where my strength is, I always need people like gut check me and be like, no, we need to go deeper than that. So I think yours is going to be the perfect balance of like, no, no, like we're going to go a little deeper than that, Alicia. And I think that'll be good for me and anyone else who's going to sign up for it. It's so good. So the therabundle is going to be, do you know the dates?
So the therabundle itself is going to be available for purchase on November 13th.
The
There will
13th.
there will be a launch party on the 12th. It's a virtual launch party, where Tamara, is gonna be hosting, and I think it's gonna be awesome, and they're gonna go over kind of what's in the bundle, like what it is, and, but I think either that day or the 13th, people are gonna get the full access to the entire list of 60 plus offerings in
Yeah.
it. It's gonna be really, really exciting. Yeah.
I'm so excited for that. And then I think so the therabundle, so you spend $100, you buy like basically it's like a gift basket. You pay one time $100, and then I think that cart is open for what, a week is it this
I think
year?
it's a week. Yeah.
About a week, and
Mhm.
definitely like we're gonna post our links and stuff, so double check us. But oh my goodness, you buy it one time for $100, and you get access to these different ones. You don't have to like buy these things individually. You do have some time to like explore them a little bit, and then you can go at those courses at your own pace. So I think a lot of them have at least a 6-month minimum, if not for like the life of the course. So it doesn't mean you have to like take your course in like the next 2 weeks. That would be maybe a little overwhelming.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. I think there's an easier sign up process too this year than last
Yes.
year. You kind of just go through a checklist. If I want access to this resource, this one, and then us on the back end, we give you access. And so
Yeah.
it's supposed to be a much quicker sign up process,
Yeah.
more easeful. And just to give an example of kind of what you were saying around it's $100 and you're not paying for every single resource on its own. If you did, you'd be paying over $8,000.
Right.
But my Money Healing for Therapist course is usually offered at $137 right now. And so if you just think about that, right,
Mm-hmm.
this one course, right, and I think other people's offerings, some of them are even more expensive than mine, some are
Yeah.
less. There's a range of cost. But you're getting access to so much just for $100. Again, it
Right.
feels too good to be true. I was so skeptical last year, but they proved me wrong.
Yep.
They
Oh,
proved me
oh, I
wrong.
bet she'd love to hear that. So yeah, so that's a great point too. Because I was like, even if you listen to this a little bit later than when the Therabundle's out, people can still access your course. So we're gonna post your website information as well as the bundle information. So I hope folks listen to this during the bundle so you can get that super good deal where it's basically getting like your course on discount and then like 60 other resources for free if they would like. But your resource will be available even after the bundle, just not on that sale. And then I think that's like the main Therabundle stuff. Any other just like common questions or things that you'd like to share about the bundle folks might want to know?
Um, I don't think so. I mean, I think there's a lot of us who are kind of posting information right now on social media, including yourself. And so I think, the more you kind of tune in, the more you're going to kind of
Hmm.
understand and really get to see who's included,
Yeah.
and what's included and how excited we all are about it. And yeah, I would just say check out our social medias. My Instagram is at Dez Valdez, kind of easy to remember. But would happy to have you kind of follow along on that journey, not just for Therabundle, but more information around relationship with money and healing that part of ourselves. So yeah.
Yes, yes. And I'm going to post the links for your socials, for your website, because I think this is something that everyone can benefit from, not just therapists. I think anyone, like just being able to have these conversations, have these tools, creating that space and that community. I think you're doing a great job. So thank you for the work that you are doing. One of the things that I like to end with is asking folks how they have been practicing authenticity lately. So can you think of ways that you've been practicing authenticity?
Yes, I can. Something really stands out to me. So, I have over the last few years in particular been really getting more in touch with my neurodivergence or
Mhm.
neurodiversity, and really finding ways to take care of myself and my nervous system, saying yes to the things that I can tolerate, saying no to the things that I can't, and just,
Yes.
accepting those things about myself and really just showing up as me and
Mm.
knowing that that's enough and that's okay. And so part of that work is also saying yes to things like this podcast, because I tend to be an introvert. I tend to be a perfectionist. I tend to be very rigid and kind of like, process and things like that. And so, I think that's one way in which I'm showing and being more authentic to
Mm.
myself is just like paying attention to those parts of me,
Yeah.
and showing up as, this is just me. So yeah.
Yes. And it's enough and it is incredible. And I so appreciate you being here today. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me. This was awesome, and I'm so glad we're in this therabundle thing together. Yeah.
Yes. Oh, yeah. Okay. You're stuck with like therabundle, like community is for life. So you can't get rid of us.
Yeah.
We are lifers. Well, folks, until next time, take care of yourselves and each other. And remember, the world needs the real you. So let's explore that authenticity together.